on VC Wisdom Pod with Shivam Patel. He's a startup intern at loweb.nyc, aspiring entrepreneur. We're going to talk about that. Venture capitalist, so he's done some scouting. He's also podcast host at Hillside Ventures and a consultant at UConn Consulting Group. Young guy, quite ambitious. That one's going to be fun. Maybe I can reminisce back in my days when I was that age and full of juice. I still am full of juice, by the way, so that's good for you, Shivam. Don't let that energy run out, because it's pretty fun. It's a very promising and beautiful world out there once you know how it works. This podcast is brought to you by podpire.com. If you want to start, scale, be invited to podcasts, find sponsors, this is the spot. Podcasts are great. Shivam will tell you he has his own to learn from people, connect with people that are higher up on the mountain of success. And finally, to generate a community, subscribers and leads, clients, podpire.com if you need help with that. Shivam, can you briefly introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about your businesses?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Charles. I appreciate the quick intro into everything. So hi, everyone. I'm Shivam Patel. I'm a junior at the University of Connecticut, and I've kind of been an entrepreneur my entire life. My parents came to America, and from then on, they started their own business, and I've kind of grew up around that ecosystem throughout my entire life. And that kind of put a spark in me. And then kind of moving on to more recent years in college, I was able to join the UConn consulting group, which really put me in the best position to grow as a person, gain some confidence, get a footing in different industries that I was interested in. And then really learn to be able to learn some skills and then put them to use to help people. So I've been able to do different projects with different companies through the consulting group, provide real business value to them with our undergrad team, with our alumni advisors who are real consultants at the end of the day at the big firms. And then also on the venture capital side, as Charles mentioned, Hillside Ventures, which is the University of Connecticut's $1 million student-run venture fund. And there we're investing in ed tech companies, sports tech companies, insurance technology companies, and sustainable companies. And with that, I've learned so much in the fact of talking to 100 plus founders, sourcing different companies that solving different problems, seeing people's different stories, which kind of parlays into the podcast and talking about people's journeys, because everyone that you meet in this space is super inspiring, and they have a very unique perspective on everything that they've been able to do. And so I've learned a ton from that front. And then kind of on presenting to different boards and things of that nature within Hillside Ventures, it's a very good student experience that we've been able to get so far. And that kind of led me to the past experience I had, or the startup internship that I had working at Loeb NYC. And with that, it was interesting because I worked in the alcohol data analytics and product innovation startup, where we were basically doing a lot of things that I didn't really know about in the beginning because it was very technical and it was very complex. But very quickly, I was able to learn. I had a very great, amazing culture around me. And I just love the fast pace of startups and kind of venture capital and that area and that space, which is why I want to continue going down that route. And yeah, I appreciate you, Charles, for having me on today.
Were you good at school historically? Were you the kid with always good grades?
I would say I had pretty good grades, but the thing for that was, one, just don't want to let down my parents, and two, had to cut some corners to be able to do the things I really wanted to, but also have that footing and kind of meet that expectation that I have for myself in my head.
So were you disappointed once you were not accepted in top universities?
That's funny you mentioned that. I actually didn't. I feel like the top university I applied to was Chapel Hill, which is in North Carolina. It's super hard to get into out of state, but I was like, what the heck, I might as well apply. Didn't get in, and came to University of Connecticut in my home state. I was like, this is probably the best case going forward. And now that I'm here, I mean, it's probably one of the best decisions that I've actually made. I feel like a couple of my friends that are at Ivy Leagues, a couple of them have come back to UConn, just more on the fact of they weren't feeling like at home type of thing. But at the same time, I have nothing against Ivy Leagues. The networking, the possibility to meet people doing some really interesting things is definitely there. But in my sense, I didn't really strive for the top university in that respect.
Right, because I remember I never had a good relationship with the educational system as an ADHD guy that was very smart, but always causing trouble in my classes. So spend 50% of the time out there. Then as a result, my grades got lower in high school. So I wasn't accepted in top colleges and so forth, and sort of lost this passion for real education, which is not grades normally, because grades are not that good to evaluate outcomes and goal accomplishment in life. And basically, I applied to law school, was rejected, and went to political science for 2 years, which I learned interesting philosophizing stuff, but still got rejected. And that really broke my heart. And I think that's what really propelled me full time into entrepreneurship. And I was like, fuck that system, I'm just gonna start my own biz. I already make more money than my teachers, so I'm dropping out. And every time I see kids studying, kids with potential, right? Kids that are pirates and rebel, I'm like, yeah, you should drop out. But let's talk about you a moment here. What were your first entrepreneurial ventures, and how has that led you to the entrepreneurial ventures that you have to this day?
That's a great question. And I appreciate your comments that you made kind of on the education system. I think there's a lot to dive into there. But as for kind of my entrepreneurial ventures, it's funny that it's very stereotypical from an early age, I would say, is I grew up in a condo, and then we moved to a house finally. And from then on, I had to mow our own lawn. So once I did that, I was like, this is a pain in the ass. I don't really want to do this, but I kind of have to. So I might as well make some money doing it. So went door to door, the whole deal, asking everyone if I can mow their lawn. Couple summers after, I have 10 to 20 lawns that I'm doing. It's very interesting work. I mean, it's very mundane. It's just cutting someone's lawn. But at the end of the day, I got some really cold hard experience on negotiating, sales, things of that nature, so that I could then parlay that into future things. I'm in the Northeast, so when winter rolls by, I can say, hey, I can also shovel the snow off your driveway, your stairs, whatever it may be, salt the driveway so that's not icy, kind of these additional things that I can kind of add on. And then after that, it really moved into a couple of different things. I started reselling shoes, things on eBay, really anything I can flip and get my hands on. In terms of more higher scale businesses, it kind of progresses as I feel like I've grown as a person. And a couple of years back, right before COVID, into COVID, I started trading and kind of getting into that in the investment space, and sparked my interest in finance in that sense, and kind of being able to use risk management and discipline to be able to create a strategy through different technical aspects that don't really need to be delved into right now. But long story short, kind of stopped that once I got to college, so I can take advantage of some of the opportunities I mentioned earlier. But funny enough that I do say that, I'm getting back into trading as I have a little bit more time to focus on things that I want to prioritize. And then, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at in the entrepreneurial journey. And really just I'm on the path right now to find a problem that I deeply care about. So a problem that I can, kind of drop everything and put all of my time and energy into.
Yeah, well, look at your reality, right? As a student, when you're a student, you try to fix student problems. My first real serious startup while I was your age was a nootropic that increased the memory, the brain performances for students, and would increase their grades quite literally. Would be an alternative to Ritalin, a natural one. Was Health Canada approved. We did research on the supplement. It was neuroprotective and so forth. Increased awakeness, memory, concentration, cognitive performances, and we sold that to students. Then we pivoted from that once we both, my partner, he graduated, I dropped out of school, we became entrepreneurs. So we built a supplement for us, right, for entrepreneurs. So I think you take your own reality and you built an idea out of that. So what problems are you facing as a student?
Problems I'm facing as a student, I would say one is being able to connect with other people. I mean, I feel like clubs do a great job with that, but at the same time, like let's give a hypothetical now. It's like, say I want to meet some new people, I go into a different club or something like that. They already have really their group of friends, or they're all familiar with each other. It's very hard to break in, and it feels like sometimes people can be a little bit more closed off than others. That's kind of like one that I see, and sometimes I feel myself. I was blessed to have a great group of friends first day of school, and we've been a big friend group ever since till this day. And so that's been fortunate for me. But just kind of thinking in terms of widely of what the student population faces. And then kind of just, to be honest, a lot of people just don't really know what they're doing. I mean, I feel like that's everyone, and it kind of should be everyone. But at the same time, like giving people guidance in some sort of way so that they can try to figure out some of the unfigureoutable stuff would be helpful in terms of like career path, because it's very pressurizing, or just figuring out what you don't like doing, I think is important, just so you can start crossing things off and double down on the things you actually want to do. But in terms of like hard problems, kind of caught me off guard there. I don't really know in the day to day.
It's a great problem you just mentioned. Community is so important. And me, I'm a weirdo. I build my communities offline. I've always been that type of kid. Well, online, sorry. I've always been that type of kid. I was addicted to World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, build my communities there when I was a kid. And even up to this day, I'm building this huge SEO community online. And once I max out this phase, I'm going to go with actual physical community. For example, this year I met actually 4 folks physically here in Oaxaca, Mexico. And yeah, people that I met first on the podcast front end. So I would say that you're on the right track with the podcast. Basically, you should scale that. Me, if I would go back in time and be your age, I would scale the fuck out of the podcast. I would interview 15 CEOs a day like I'm doing right now. This can be hugely valuable. You can build an online network, and on the back end, you can have a community, right, that you're slowly but surely building. And yeah, you're not a big shot yourself, but you can introduce yourself as a moderator and a facilitator. And high egos, top guns like CEOs, very successful people, they need that. They need people to put themselves in between them and others. And they don't need weak facilitators. They need people that are CEOs, but yeah, can step in between and moderate and plan the whole thing. So that'd be a great idea right there. It doesn't need to be something revolutionary, but yeah, me, I'm obviously super bullish on podcasts. Are you?
Yeah, I think you brought up a great point there. I have a question for you actually, is like, how would you go about at like a student level to be able to start building the community, and then, in the future monetizing it in a way that it can pay for kind of the base expenses of running the podcast, running the community, and then it can scale from there?
Yeah, have something in the back end. For example, this podcast, I have Podbuyer, right, which is a podcasting agency. So you could literally start the same. You invite people on the pod, and then you offer them podcast services to manage their own podcast with your own angle. For example, mine is not about editing bullshit. It's mostly about putting them in front of cool people and having systems and having scale. And there's no other podcast agency that does that. It's a really weird niche, and it's not made for anyone. So have that as a backend. For example, I charge 1.5K a month for that. I interview 15 CEOs a day, and I close 10% of these. So it's good money. Then the sponsors, right? So you can use the same outreach method. If you want, you and I will spend time together after that, and I can show you my systems. But you outreach sponsors that have been sponsoring other podcasts. And there you go. Like me, I got my first sponsor after probably 45-ish days. What are they called again? Builderall. It's like a ClickFunnels alternative. They're quite great. So they're gonna buy a deal from me of a bunch of podcasts, and that's minimum $100 per episode. I record 10 to 15 a day. So that's another revenue model right there. And then you want to have at the back end of the podcast, the front end, at the back end, you want to build some kind of mastermind in a community. You meet once a month with these CEOs. You ask them about their goals, their aspirations, you make them accountable, you show them insights, and you moderate the whole thing, you organize the whole thing. It's a Google Meet, it repeats on a monthly basis, and you have a document to take notes, and you don't charge them for that until you actually do, so you can have a 60-day free trial, something like that. And yeah, that's a third way to monetize it. What do you think?
I think those are great points. I mean, everything is value based, so they get kind of what they're paying for, or if they're not paying for anything, they'll end up paying for it in the future if they find it valuable. I think
Well,
that's
let me
something I'll
ask you
definitely.
this, because I'm about to remove the free trial yesterday for my mastermind. I've had someone tell me that yesterday, and they're actually right. Who will show up for a mastermind, in whether, even if they show up on time, who will show up as their best self if they're not paying for something. I had some successful case studies with this mastermind, but I find that especially the first mastermind, there's a quite high unattendance rate of no shows, because people are scared because they don't pay for the thing. So should I remove this free model, or should I keep on A/B testing it?
I think personally, if I were paying for something, I'm putting 100% effort into it. I mean, I'm I don't want to waste my money at the end of the day. But if I'm gonna put my dollar capital into it, I'm gonna put as much as my self capital into it to be able to give it my all, and give everyone else who also paid for it the opportunity to be themselves, give their thoughts, give their concerns. But if on your sense, on your perspective, I think it would be interesting to kind of, if you only do one a month for everyone, or is it kind of split up into like different groups if you have a lot of people? Like how does it work exactly?
I have many. And basically, there's two things that are interesting. You always need to have an angle, right, with everything that you do. And this product of mine is no different than all the products that I deploy. So this mastermind, first thing that's special is that we record them. The All In podcast with Jason
Yes.
Calcanis. Well, it's the
Yeah.
same concept. So we record them and produce content out of them. The second specific thing that is weird for mastermind, and I'm saying weird because in masterminds, usually everything's private, right?
Yep.
So that's an odd angle. The second odd angle, and it qualifies the people that I want. I want people that are open books. The second odd angle is that I group up everyone in the same niche, competitors, quote unquote, right? And a bunch, me, who I want, again, I don't only want people to be open books, but I want people to be collaborative and competitive, and not be like closed books that don't want to share anything. So I group up mastermind per mastermind, one for clean tech, one for VCs, one for Gen AI, for example. And that's cool for them because they can exchange real valuable information for people that are actually in their niche. So these are the two interesting concepts. So I have a bunch to answer your question. I have probably 15 masterminds at that point.
Gotcha. I guess with like having a bunch of masterminds, it'd be cool to test out and just kind of compare. Maybe like two similar ones, like a VC and something that's similar to that, or any other two topics that are kind of similar to each other, and then split it up so that one of them you're still going the free route, or however you're working at it right now with the free trial. And then the other route is you make it kind of a paywall, and the people that pay kind of test the metrics regarding those. I think would be interesting to find. I feel like hypothesis wise, if someone's going to pay for it, they're going to show up on time. They're going to actually attend. They're going to be present for the most part. But then on the other side, whatever you observe right now is probably going to continue happening unless someone is just going above and beyond, if that's just their nature. I mean, at the end of the day, if they don't have the buy-in themselves through just their own commitment, then I don't think they're going to continue that if it's free at the end of the day.
Right. And keep on honing my quality algorithm. I guess just like me not filtering quality people if they don't show up. So that's another important fact. It is tough to do that, by the way. I want to finish this pod by pitching you. How much time do you have right now on your day as a student?
In terms of like free time,
Yeah,
or
free
what do you
time
mean?
for work.
For work, uh This semester, I'm actually running a project for the consulting group with a company out of Australia, still running the podcast and a couple of other research things regarding neuroscience. But out of that, I mean, I could make the time for something that I deem fit. I mean, I would probably say like 5 to 10 hours is like maximum extra for extra work
Per day or per week?
per week.
Okay, so that was just the difference between hustler and like soft. Okay. I have this program in which I'm recruiting interns. I book a bunch of people in your calendar, right? You interview them as my podcast, the brand, right? CEO Wisdom Pod. And you get to meet amazing people, develop your brand, hone your skills. You get training from me on a podcasting level. And every transaction that you close for me, I give you a cut for the podcast agency, right? So if you close it by yourself, that's 30% that you get. That's $500. And if I book 10 a day, typically you should close one as a client per day, $300 a day. It's not too bad, but that's a picture perfect scenario if you're like already scaling there. What do you think about that offer?
It'd be interesting. I mean, in terms of you saying interviewing other people, I mean, you definitely have a lot of these calls. You mentioned 10 to 15
Yeah,
calls a day with
CEOs,
CEOs.
VCs, and all of these high performers.
So you have them pre-scheduled basically, and then you probably send them out like well in advance type of thing.
Yeah,
So you
on
know
a
the
Google
schedule.
Cal / Calendly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, what exactly are you looking for from like is someone doing this already for you? I'm sure there's a couple other people already doing that or something.
There's people in the prog, but it's like new. So I'm currently A/B testing it.
Gotcha. I mean, I would definitely be interested. Definitely want to think more about it in terms of like bandwidth because I don't want to commit to something and then not be able to put my 100% into it. I don't want to leave you hanging, especially if it's something a little bit more high stakes. Uh, but at the same time, like I don't want to miss an opportunity to help someone or just learn because this would selfishly it would be good for me. I would be able to learn a ton, meet some cool people while I'm at it. But also for you, it's helpful. You have another set of hands kind of going at it, helping scale the business. Uh, but yeah, I definitely want to communicate a little bit after this just to kind of see your thoughts and if there's a little bit more info. But definitely don't want to give you a hard answer right now as I
That's
can't
fine.
fully say anything.
You're not on a hot seat. You're great, man. Shivam, you have a bright future ahead of you. So until that meeting, that second meeting between us, where can people find out more about you?
Alrighty, I appreciate it. Is there anything else that you want to talk about, or I'm interested to talk offline about the nootropic stuff. I mean, part of my research is doing some neuroscience stuff on kind of gut reactions, and the other half of it is language learning. So, super curious to hear what you've worked on that space.
Yeah, there you go. That was Shivam Patel for everyone that is tuning in. So you can find him under Shivam Patel on LinkedIn, startup intern at lobe.nyc, aspiring entrepreneur consultant, venture cap, UConn consulting group. You can check him out for this.